I paused outside the private dining room of the Jade Conservatory, my knuckles white around the custom-made mahogany box holding the vintage Leica camera. 8 years. That's how long I'd been their safety net, their emergency fund, their damn fixer. 8 years of answering every crisis call, solving every self-inflicted problem, and emptying my carefully built-up savings at their slightest whim. Tonight was supposed to be the validation, the moment they finally looked at me, Madison Carter, the 32-year-old software architect who paid their bills and saw something more than just their personal ATM. I smoothed down my silk dress, took a deep, steadying breath, and pushed the door open. My mother, Patricia, sat at the far end of the long table, a queen surveying her damaged yet entitled court. Her critical gaze zeroed in on me immediately, assessing my outfit, my hair, probably even my posture, searching for the imperfection she could weaponize later. Beside her, my older brother, Jackson, gave a lazy, superior smirk into his expensive water glass, the same look he's worn since he convinced me to give him my college fund for his guaranteed-to-succeed startup when I was 24. It failed 6 months later. My younger brother, Tyler, looked up from his phone just long enough to arrange his features into a mask of obligatory delight that completely bypassed his cold eyes. "Matey, finally decided to grace us with your presence?" he chirped, already turning back to his screen. Only my father, George, brightened genuinely. He stood, arms outstretched, his smile wide as he spotted the gift in my hands. "There's my girl," he said warmly. I navigated the long table, offering brief nods to the others before reaching Dad. "Happy birthday, Dad." His embrace was tight, sincere, and for a fleeting second I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this dinner would be different. That tonight my efforts, the long hours, the canceled vacations, the financial hemorrhaging would earn me actual recognition, not just temporary gratitude before the next inevitable demand. I handed him the camera. "This is for you." He tried to protest. "You didn't have to, Maddie." But his eyes, already watering, were glued to the box. I slid into the only empty seat, placed directly opposite my mother at the head of the table. Isolated. The seating arrangement itself was a clear message. I was the outsider, the contributor, not truly part of the inner circle. The server appeared at my elbow. "Can I get you started with something to drink, miss?" "Yes, She'll have the house white," Patricia interrupted, cutting across me with the practiced ease of years. Maddie never developed a palate for real wines. I fought the automatic flinch and forced a smile that felt brittle on my lips. "Actually, I'll have the Bordeaux. The Chateau Margaux 2017, please." Patricia's smile tightened into a cruel line. "Must be nice to have such disposable income without the real responsibilities of a family and children." The familiar, sickening knot of anxiety formed deep in my gut. I had been at the table for less than 5 minutes. "I'd like to order the second octopus appetizer for the table," I said, deliberately changing the subject and upping the ante. Jackson rolled his eyes so dramatically, I heard the sigh across the table. "Of course you would. Always showing off, Maddie." I zoned out for a moment, flashing back to that first major sacrifice. I was 24, fresh out of grad school with my first huge engineering bonus, $50,000, earmarked for my first down payment. Then came the frantic, tearful call from Patricia. George's elective knee replacement wasn't covered by their lapsed insurance premiums, and if they didn't pay the full balance in 10 days, he wouldn't get the surgery. "Your father is too proud to ask," she whispered conspiratorially, "but we need this, Maddie. You're the only one." The relief I felt after wiring the entire bonus was immediate, euphoric. I was the hero, the capable daughter, the one who fixed things. Elias, my boyfriend at the time, saw the pattern forming long before I did. "They're not family, Maddie. They're vampires. They'll drain you until you have nothing left,"
he warned me one night after I canceled our trip to Tahoe to bail Trevor out of a fake tuition scam. I dismissed him, clinging to the mantra, family comes first. 3 months later, he was gone. Back in the present, Trevor was dominating the conversation with some fabricated story about his latest business venture that sounded suspiciously like a pyramid scheme. Some people just get the game, you know? He finished, winking at me. I noticed he and Jackson were both sipping the expensive Bordeaux I ordered. Jackson took a slow, theatrical gulp, maintaining eye contact, knowing perfectly well the $400 bottle was on my tab. The dinner crawled toward the gift exchange. Jackson presented Dad with a flimsy gift certificate to a big box hardware store, crumpled and stained. Perfect for those DIY weekends, he announced, as if he delivered a priceless artifact. Trevor's gift was predictably self-serving, a framed photograph of him and Dad, eyes closed, hugging awkwardly at a concert I wasn't invited to. To remember our special connection, Trevor insisted, his eyes wide with manufactured sentimentality. When Dad finally unwrapped my gift, the gleaming 70-year-old Leica, with its supple leather strap, the room went silent. "Maddie?" Dad whispered, his eyes genuinely shining, touched beyond words. This is too much." The flush of pride that washed over me was immediately replaced by a sudden icy premonition as I saw Patricia's face. Resentment was a harsh, deep etching around her mouth. "Well," Patricia chirped, that cruel, brittle sound that was worse than shouting. "I suppose when you don't have a husband or children of your own to support, you can afford to waste money on things like this. You're trying to buy your father's love, Maddie." The table froze. "That's not fair, Mom," I managed, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. "Not fair?" She laughed lightly, shaking her head. "What's not fair is how you flaunt it. You use your money to make us feel small. You're trying to purchase your place in this family." The words burst out, unplanned, driven by 8 years of suffocating bitterness. I'm paying for Dad's surgery. I'm paying for this entire ridiculous dinner. "There it is." Patricia's voice rose, vibrating with feigned disgust. "Always keeping score. You want to know the truth? You're pathetic. A lonely, bitter woman. And you want to know why? Because you've always been nothing more than an appendage to this family, Maddie. You're not truly one of us." I turned desperately to Jackson, silently begging for some support, some acknowledgement of the sheer injustice unfolding. He looked deliberately away, sipping the expensive wine I was paying for, a slight smirk playing on his lips. And in that moment, the fog of denial lifted completely. The crises would never stop. The demands would never end. The goalposts would always move. I was not family. I was their bank. And banks, I realized, with a strange, terrifying calm settling over my soul, have the power to foreclose. I left the Jade Conservatory with my head held high, though my entire body was shaking. The maitre d' nodded sympathetically as I approached the payment desk, her eyes flicking toward the private room where my family's enraged voices were still audible. "Is everything all right, Miss Carter?" she asked, pulling up the reservation. "Perfect," I said, forcing a calm into my voice that I didn't feel. "I'd like to make a change to the payment arrangement." I pulled $200 bills from my wallet, sliding them across the counter to the server. "Please charge my meal and Mr. George Carter's meal to my card." My voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "The remaining bill, for 6 guests, please deliver it directly to Mrs. Patricia Carter. Do not give it to anyone else, and please wait until I have fully left the premises." The server's eyes widened, but she nodded, tucking the cash into her apron. "Absolutely, Miss Carter. I understand completely." I felt a dizzying lightness as I turned toward the exit. The night air was electric against my skin. My phone started vibrating repeatedly in my purse before I even reached my car. 6 missed calls, all from Patricia. I started the engine, but didn't drive away. My fingers hovered over the screen when a text notification appeared. It wasn't from my family, it was from my cousin, Lisa. "Did you see what they were saying about you in the family group chat?" Family group chat? What family group chat? Lisa's follow-up text contained screenshots. The timestamp showed messages sent 3 hours before tonight's dinner. Jackson. Maddie booked the private room at the Jade Conservatory. Tyler. Awesome! She just got that promotion. Time to launder the bonus. I felt the blood drain from my face, but I kept scrolling. Patricia. Boys, be nice. Your sister is just trying. 3 simple dots after trying that contained all the dismissal, all the calculated condescension of the last 8 years. They planned this. They coordinated their roles, calculating the maximum financial and emotional extraction while simultaneously ensuring I felt small and unworthy. My mother. My own mother. The phone buzzed again. A voicemail. 7 missed calls now. I pulled out of the parking lot, driving aimlessly until I reached my loft building. The familiar quiet of my apartment welcomed me, but tonight it felt different. Not lonely, but peacefully empty. I poured a glass of wine and pressed play on the first voicemail. How dare you embarrass me like that? Patricia's voice filled the room, vibrating with pure, unadulterated rage. After everything I have done for you? You ungrateful, selfish. I deleted the message before she could finish. Then the next and the next, each one more toxic than the last, not a single apology among them. When I reached the end, I did something I had never dared to do. I blocked her number. The silence that followed was monumental. I opened my laptop and navigated to a travel site. 10 minutes later, I had booked a solo flight to Costa Rica, the trip I'd always put off because family needed me. With Patricia's voice silenced, my mind turned razor sharp. I pulled out my financial records, spreading them across my kitchen island. The sickening evidence of my exploitation was laid bare. $40,000 from my 401k for George's elective knee replacement, $25,000 to Jackson for his revolutionary startup that failed in 6 months, and thousands more for Tyler's endless stream of unverified tuition bills and failed car repairs. I did the math. Over $85,000 lost, setting my retirement back 5 years. The financial loss was crushing, but the emotional manipulation, the canceled life with Elias, the missed promotions, the perpetual gut-churning anxiety with every phone call was the real devastation. The next morning, I sat in Dr. Maya Stone's office. I'm free, I said, the words feeling foreign and fragile. So why do I feel this crushing guilt, this emptiness? I don't know who I am if I'm not their problem solver.
Dr. Stone studied me over her glasses. Because problem solver was a role you played. It gave you purpose, but it wasn't you, Maddie. Our job is to find out who you actually are. My phone lit up with a text. Elias, heard about the dinner. Are you okay? I smiled, appreciating his concern, but not ready to respond yet. That evening, Trevor launched his counterattack. An email notification appeared. Tyler Carter has tagged you in a GoFundMe campaign. Title: Family Betrayed by Narcissist Sister. The description painted me as a cold villain who abandoned her sick father and struggling brothers. I reported it for fraud instantly. By midnight, the page was gone. An anonymous email arrived shortly after from Trevor's personal account. You're a monster. You won't help, and now you actively sabotage us? You'll regret this. I read the threat twice, waiting for the familiar wave of panic and guilt to set in, the desperate need to fix the bad feelings. It didn't come. Instead, something hard and cold clarified within me. The threat had the opposite of its intended effect. It solidified my resolve. That night, I slept without anxiety, just peace, and the knowledge that tomorrow I began building a life that was truly mine. 2 days after the restaurant explosion, I was staring at my phone, scrolling through Patricia's latest Facebook masterpiece. It was a black and white photo of her gazing wistfully out a rainy window, captioned, "The deepest wounds come from those we love most. How can an ungrateful child abandon the very family who sacrificed everything for them? Broken heart. Family first." The comment section was already a toxic soup of false sympathy.
Old family friends, distant relatives, and even my old high school teacher were offering prayers and support. My stomach twisted as I read one response. Sending love, Patricia. Some children just forget where they came from. I put my phone down and took a deep, shuddering breath, Dr. Maya Stone's voice echoing in my mind. This is exactly what we discussed. Public shame is a control mechanism. They're trying to leverage your guilt. My landline, the one number I hadn't blocked because I barely used it, suddenly rang. 4 rings before I answered. 3 of your mother's friends called me today, Elias said, without preamble, his voice tight. Apparently, I was dating a monster who abandoned her poor, sick family. I'm sorry, Elias, I whispered, clutching the phone. Don't be. I told them all to go to hell. His voice softened slightly. How are you actually holding up, Maddie? Before I could answer, my work line buzzed. I have to go. Work emergency, I told him quickly. But it wasn't work. It was Marianne from reception, her voice taut with discomfort. Maddie, your brother Trevor is in the lobby. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's insisting on seeing you. Says it's a family emergency. Ice flooded my veins. They were escalating. Tell him I'm in a meeting. I'll call him later. But I did, but he said he'll wait all day if necessary. I peered through the glass walls of my office toward the elevator bank. Sure enough, Trevor was lounging against the reception desk, the manufactured, charming smile firmly in place as he tried to sweet-talk Marianne's assistant. My hands started to shake uncontrollably as I gathered my laptop and files. There was a back stairwell that led directly to the parking garage, a hidden route I'd never had reason to use before today. I slipped away like a criminal, heart pounding, utterly disgusted by the desperation of their pursuit. Later that evening, a cream-colored envelope arrived in my mailbox. I recognized Patricia's flowing, dramatic handwriting immediately. For a moment, I considered throwing it away unopened, but morbid curiosity, or perhaps the need for proof, won out. I carried it inside, setting it on the kitchen counter while I poured a glass of wine. The letter was 5 pages long, handwritten on Patricia's monogrammed stationery. My dearest daughter, it began. After much reflection and several sessions with my spiritual counselor, I've come to understand how my own deep-seated insecurities may have contributed to our current situation. I read each carefully crafted word, noting how she managed to sound remorseful and wounded without actually apologizing for anything specific she had said or done. The letter meandered through tearful childhood memories, philosophical musings about the complexities of mother-daughter relationships, and vague references to healing our sacred bond. It was the postscript, hastily added in different ink, that exposed the entire charade. P.S. Your father misses you terribly, and the final installment for his knee replacement facility fee is due next month. It would mean the world to him if you settled it. I didn't tear the letter. I didn't crumple it. Instead, I walked calmly to my desk, retrieved the scissors, and methodically cut the 5 pages into precise, tiny squares. The confetti rained into the trash can, a surprisingly profound moment of satisfaction. No, they might lose the house because they didn't pay their taxes or premiums. There's a difference. How can you be so cold after everything they've done for you? What exactly have they done for me, Jackson? Name 3 things. His sputtering filled the silence. That's what I thought, I said, the steadiness in my voice surprising even me. Goodbye, Jackson. I hung up, waiting for the crash of guilt. It never came. Instead, I opened my laptop and created a new spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, emergency description. Column C, amount. I began meticulously documenting over $85,000 in loans and gifts over 8 years. Next to it, I opened my calendar, marking every vacation, date, and personal event canceled for family emergencies. The pattern was stark, undeniable. 2 weeks later, I boarded the plane to Costa Rica. The photos I took showed a woman I barely recognized, shoulders relaxed, eyes clear, truly smiling. 1 year after the restaurant confrontation, I was reviewing quarterly projections when my phone buzzed with a text. Trevor's name appeared. "We need to talk. It's about Dad." My heart fluttered, old programming trying to reassert itself. Call immediately. Drop everything. Fix it. I set the phone down and continued working for exactly 30 minutes, completing my task before picking it up again. The message waited, demanding a response. I made a decision. A week later, I was sitting in a bustling cafe, the hiss of espresso machines and murmured conversations creating the perfect public backdrop. I checked my watch, 2 minutes until Trevor arrived. I pulled out my phone, opened the recording app, and pressed start. The screen confirmed. Recording. I slipped it back into my purse, making sure the microphone wasn't obstructed. "You okay?" I looked up to find Elias at the next table, his laptop open. He'd arrived 15 minutes before me, maintaining the illusion of a separate customer. "I'm fine," I said, genuinely surprised by how true it felt, just ready to get this over with. The door chimed. Trevor walked in, scanning the cafe until he spotted me. He was dressed better than usual, the crisp button-down of manufactured responsibility. He had come prepared. So had I. "Matey," he said, his voice carrying the precise note of controlled concern as he slid into the chair. "Thank you for meeting me." "I have 30 minutes, I said, tapping my watch. "I need to be back at work for a conference call." Annoyance flickered across Trevor's face, quickly masked by practiced sympathy. He pulled out a manila envelope. "I brought some things you need to see." He laid several photographs on the table. George, looking pale and thin, sitting in his recliner. George at what looked like a doctor's office, shoulders slumped. George asleep in a hospital bed, an IV in his arm. Guilt, cold and sharp, momentarily pierced my resolve. "When were these taken?" I whispered. "Over the last few months." Trevor leaned forward, voice dropping. "He hasn't been the same since you abandoned us, matey. He barely eats. The doctors say his blood pressure is dangerously high. He needs another surgery." The implication hung heavy. "This is your fault." Dr. Stone's words rang in my mind. "They know he's your weak spot." "I'm sorry to hear he's unwell," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Which hospital is he being treated at?" Trevor blinked. "County General." "And his doctor's name?" "Dr. Wilson." The answer came too quickly. "Neurosurgeon or orthopedic specialist?" Trevor's eyes narrowed. "What difference does it make?" "It makes a difference because I'd like to speak directly with his doctor." I pulled out my phone.
Give me Dr. Wilson's contact information, and I can call right now to discuss Dad's treatment plan. Trevor shifted, visibly uncomfortable. "You can't just call his doctor. There are privacy laws." "Dad can authorize it. Let's call him right now and ask." "He's resting," he said sharply. "The medication makes him drowsy." I took a slow sip of my coffee, observing his tells, the finger tapping, the rapid blinking. "I care about Dad's health, but I won't be manipulated, Trevor. I need facts, not these photos." His expression darkened. "You sound just like that therapist of yours. Has she convinced you that your own family is manipulating you?" He leaned forward again. "What kind of daughter abandons her father when he needs her most? Mom was right about you. You've always been selfish." In the past, I would have spiraled into frantic defense. Not today. "I understand that's your perspective," I said simply. When no justification followed, confusion flickered across his face. "Look," he said, voice hardening, "this isn't a debate. Either help with Dad's surgery or don't pretend to care about him. I've offered to speak directly with his doctor. If he truly needs another surgery, I want to hear the details from medical professionals, not through you." "Fine," he threw up his hands. "Call Dad,
but Mom already told him you'd pay for everything. The slip hung in the air. Trevor froze, realizing what he'd revealed. So, Dad doesn't actually know you're asking me for money. Don't twist my words. Dad knows he needs surgery. Mom was just trying to spare him the stress of financial worries. Heads turned at nearby tables. Trevor slammed his hand on the table. You've always had it easy, Maddie. Your fancy job, your wealth, while the rest of us struggle. And now you won't even help our father? I kept my voice soft. Trevor, we're in a public place. Let's keep this civil. The server approached, professional but firm. Sir, I need to ask you to lower your voice or take this conversation elsewhere. Trevor glared at her. Elias stood and moved closer to my table, saying nothing, just a solid presence behind my chair. My phone chimed, a text from Elias. Everything okay? I ignored it and picked up my phone, dialing George's number, holding Trevor's furious gaze as it rang. Hello? Dad's voice was alert. Dad? It's me, Maddie. Kemi, surprise! He sounded genuinely happy. Trevor said you were too busy to talk. Trevor lunged for my phone. I turned away, protecting the connection. How are you feeling, Dad? Trevor showed me some pictures. He says you need another surgery. Surgery? Dad sounded confused. No, the doctor just changed my blood pressure medication last month. It's working well. No surgery needed. Trevor stood abruptly, face pale. I have to go. As he gathered his things, I noticed his phone screen light up. Patricia's name, followed by, did she agree? How much? Trevor stormed toward the door, just as my phone pinged again. Jackson calling. I declined it, watching my younger brother flee the cafe. Dad, I said, feeling something fundamental shift inside me. There is something we need to talk about. The phone rang as I was sorting through quarterly investment reports the next week. George's name flashed on the screen, and I paused, feeling the old, familiar tug of obligation, a ghost reflex, not a genuine emotion. It had been 3 weeks since the cafe incident with Trevor. 3 weeks of relative, blessed quiet. Dad, I answered, keeping my voice even. Professional. Cammy. His voice was warm, but cautious, like he was testing the boundaries of a fresh scar. How are you, sweetheart? I'm good. Busy with work. I tapped my pen against the desk calendar, already sensing the inevitable question. Listen, I've been thinking. George cleared his throat. What if we had a family dinner next week, just to talk things through? Patricia promises to apologize. The old Maddie, the desperate, needy fixer, would have immediately rearranged her entire schedule, grateful for any crumb of reconciliation, convinced that an apology meant the pattern would end.
But as I sat in my office, surrounded by the verifiable evidence of the life I was building, I recognized the trap for what it was, a desperate attempt at reestablishment. I love you, Dad, I said softly, the genuine emotion allowing me to deliver the rejection gently. But I can't. An apology under pressure isn't real, and I'm not ready to put myself in that position again. I won't be ambushed. The silence stretched between us. I could practically hear the air deflating from his lungs. She's really trying, Cammy. Is she? I countered, gently but firmly. Or is she just trying to get things back to the way they were, Dad? Back to when she didn't have to pay her own bills? Another long pause. I miss you. I miss you too. But this isn't about punishing anyone. It's about protecting myself. When we finally hung up, the old guilt surfaced, that nagging voice questioning whether I was being selfish, whether family loyalty should truly trump self-preservation. I pulled out the therapy journal Dr. Maya Stone had suggested. Beneath the guilt, I identified something new and solid: resolve. Thanksgiving arrived with a flurry of social media posts across the country, all about gratitude and family togetherness. The Carter family invitation sat untouched in my email inbox. Instead, I spent the day hosting a small gathering of my own chosen family, Elias and his new partner, Michael. We cooked together in my loft, laughing over burned rolls and slightly undercooked stuffing. To freedom, Elias toasted, raising his glass with a knowing, supportive smile. Later that night, scrolling through Instagram, I saw Patricia's perfectly staged family photo. George, looking uncomfortable in a sweater I'd never seen before, Jackson and Trevor flanking him, their smiles tight and proprietary. The caption read, "So sad when a family is broken apart by selfishness. We miss those who should be here." Just months ago, this would have sent me spiraling into shame and defensive explanations. Tonight, I just felt a sad confirmation of my mother's victim complex. I closed the app and slept soundly. The call from Mira came out of nowhere on a Tuesday morning in December. Jackson's wife rarely contacted me directly. "Maddie?" Her voice was thick with tears and stress. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I didn't know who else to call." I stepped away from my desk, moving to the privacy of the stairwell. "What's wrong, Mira?" "It's Jackson. He's been lying to me. He just admitted he's $20,000 in debt to you from that failed startup, and now he's demanding I sell my car to cover new debts. He keeps blaming you for cutting him off and ruining his finances." The revelation didn't surprise me. It confirmed what I already knew about Jackson living beyond the belief that someone, usually me, would always bail him out. "Mira, I am truly sorry you're in this position, but that is between you and Jackson. I am not involved. But if you could just help us, just this once." "No." The word came easily now, a firm, non-negotiable boundary. "I can't fix this for you. Jackson needs to face his own financial choices." After we hung up, I sat on the stairs, processing. The family was turning on each other now that their main resource was inaccessible. It was a moment of both vindication and sadness. The system I had enabled was collapsing, and they were finally facing real-world consequences. Back at my desk, an email from Maria in senior management waited. "Maddie, can we meet to discuss the Harrington acquisition? We're considering you for project lead." The opportunity was exactly what I've been working toward: a major promotion, higher pay, and significant responsibility. The old Maddie script played in my head. "I can't. I need to be available for emergencies. What if someone needs me?" That evening in Dr. Stone's office, I paced by the window. "What's holding you back?" she asked me, watching me with that penetrating, gentle gaze. "I've always been the one they could count on. What if someone needs me and I'm stuck in meetings?" Dr. Stone leaned forward.
Whose emergency are you actually afraid of missing, Maddie? Is it your family's, or is it your own? The question stopped me, dead. Mine? The emergency of feeling needed, of having purpose defined by solving other people's problems. The truth of it settled in my chest, heavy and real. I had built my entire adult identity around being the fixer, the crisis manager. Without that role, who was I? "I think," I said slowly, forcing the admission out, "I'm afraid of finding out who I am when I'm not saving everyone else." The next morning, I emailed Maria. I'd be honored to lead the Harrington acquisition. 3 months later, I was standing at a podium at the annual Financial Services Conference, leading a panel on emerging market investments. My voice was steady, confident. The room was packed, and I felt a strange sense of belonging, a sense I never once experienced with my own family. At the reception afterward, a man approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "Impressive panel," he said, offering me a glass. "I especially liked your point about sustainable development funds." "Thank you." I accepted the glass, noticing his easy smile. "Leo Chen," he introduced himself, venture capitalist. "Madison Carter, Westridge Investments." Our conversation flowed easily about work,
about technology trends, and about our shared love of international travel. Not once did we mention family drama or financial stress. It was just two professionals connecting as equals. When he asked for my card, I felt a flutter of interest that had nothing to do with needing to save him or fix his problems. He was successful, stable, and my equal. That night, I stared at his business card, realizing how profoundly things had changed. My old life was fading away, replaced by something I never thought possible: independence. George calls less frequently now, and when he does, the conversations have entirely shifted. "How's work, Maudie?" he asks, genuine interest in his voice. "Good. Challenging, but good. I'm leading a major acquisition." "That's wonderful." A pause. I started seeing someone. A therapist, I mean. The admission surprised me. "That's great, Dad." "Yeah, well, turns out I have some things to work through." Trevor's sporadic, venomous emails have stopped. Jackson is radio silent, likely dealing with his own fallout. Patricia remains a blocked number. The silence used to feel like a punishing emptiness. Now it feels like peace. As I placed Leo's card on my nightstand, I realized I was no longer waiting for the next crisis call. I was just living my life. And it was enough.
My retirement fund, decimated by their demands, was steadily rebuilding. Each automatic transfer was an investment in myself, something the old Maddie would have found impossibly selfish. George calls occasionally. His individual therapy has helped him establish some independence from Patricia. Our conversations are respectful, focused only on him and me, never on what I can provide. Trevor sends sporadic, meaningless texts. Jackson remains distant, unable to view me as anything but the resource that betrayed him. Patricia remains unchanged, but her power over me has dissolved. Her manipulations are transparent now, almost comical in their predictability. Leo joined me on the balcony as night fell completely. We discussed weekend plans, future dreams, conversations unburdened by financial obligations to others. "Freedom isn't just about cutting ties," I said, watching the city lights shimmer below. "It's about having the choice to set the terms." His hand found mine. I deleted another blocked voicemail with my free thumb. The city below was a sea of possibilities stretching outward. For the first time, the future felt like an open road rather than a confined box. I was finally completely free to choose my own direction. The bank was closed. The foreclosure was complete.